welcome to another video. This particular video is to cover your rights as a candidate. Now, I'm going to be very straightforward. As a candidate, you have very little rights. However, there are a couple of developments coming into the UK and the EU, which is actually from the States. So the first development, which is happening 1st of January 2024, is agency recruiters and internal recruiters will no longer be able to ask for your current salary or pay history or compensation. So how do you handle that as a candidate when a recruiter asks you for your salary expectations, previous pay? Well, one, they shouldn't be asking for previous pay, full stop. That will be illegal from the 1st of January. However, what I've seen hiring in the US and how US-based candidates have actually handled this question is what they will ask, and this is what I recommend you do, is ask for the salary range or budget. What's the role being approved at? Is there a salary range? Now, most companies will use independent benchmarking companies like Radford, like ADP, to get an idea on the salary range for that particular role in that particular country or that particular region. Personally, I think it should be done in a country, someone who's doing a role in London versus someone doing the role in Manchester. Cost of living is very similar apart from in London. Obviously housing and renting is a lot more expensive, but a loaf of bread will cost a loaf of bread in London as it does up in Manchester. There might be a 1 or 2 penny difference, but not much. So that's the first thing. Yet again, I would just reiterate, ask for the salary range or ask for what the budget is approved to. Okay. The idea of this EU legislation, which the UK is also adopting, is to stop pay discrimination between genders. I think it's a noble idea. And there will be pay discrimination in certain verticals, which are very evident, and other verticals there won't be so evident. A good example of this was Google a few years ago did a pay transparency exercise. They weren't legally obliged to, but because they decided that their pay was going to be determined by algorithm, it weighted to a certain group of people a lot higher salary, and it actually cost Google a lot of money to fix this problem. So the average employee at Google is an L4 software engineer. Now, most software engineers are going to be male. It starts out at school, particularly when they're teenagers, that a lot of teenage boys will get into programming, will start learning Linux kernels in their bedroom, XYZ. And that problem amplifies as that generation grows up. A good example of this, yet again, is when I was a lot younger, before I met my wife, I dated a girl for a couple of dates, and she was studying at university a computer soft sciences degree. Now, she told me that out of 104 people on the university course, only 3 were female. She said by the end of year 1, all the female students had dropped out. The reason why was quite interesting to listen to her is that a lot of all the other students who were studying, who were men, had grown up in an environment where they didn't know how to speak to women more than anything else. So it was really off-putting for the 3 female students to be in an environment where they're dealing with boys who don't have the social skills to actually speak to women. They may turn out to be great software engineers in the future, but obviously that's something which is outside an employer's control. The reason I mention this is because it reflects back on Google and their pay algorithm and how companies decide what they're going to offer you. Okay, so what they noticed, it was the algorithm which they developed had offered female software engineers at the same grade a lot more money. We're talking $20,000-$30,000 more. But when the vast majority of your engineers are men, and I've gone through the reasons why that is, obviously you can't go to your female population and ask them to take a pay cut. So they had to raise the pay of the other engineers. Otherwise, it was a clear case of discrimination, and Google could have been sued for hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars for discrimination. So yet again, when it comes to the 1st of January, you no longer have to pass your pay history or your compensation details. I would ask, and I would recommend you to ask, what's the budget and or the range of the role? Okay, that's to protect you. One, it's for transparency, but two, I've been in interviews where I've spoken to recruiters and they said, "What's your salary? What do you want? X, Y, Z." And literally, I remember one interview which I had probably over 10 years ago with Intel, that I was speaking to a recruiter based in Eastern Europe, and for the 8 minutes saying, "This is what we're going to pay, this is what we're going to pay, what are your expectations, what are your expectations?" We need to drive the conversation away from just we're going to hire people at the lowest kind of level of money, because that's not how you do hiring. That's not who you are. Money's important, but it's not everything. Now, other rights which you have as a candidate. Now, you do have underneath GDPR, and the UK still follows this, Article 17, which is the right to be forgotten. So you're submitting your applications through, you don't hear back, or you get a rejection note. And I would recommend this to all candidates to do this. If you haven't heard back on an application, say in about a month, or you get a rejection note, request your data to be deleted. This is where you need to put your cybersecurity hat on. You're going to have personal information on there, at minimum your email address, most likely your mobile number. I know a few software engineers who don't put their mobile numbers on. Um, you might have a Skype ID. A lot of candidates still put their home address on there. This is all personal, private information which is protected underneath law. Now, your CV is going to sit in the cloud. It's going to sit in some server somewhere. And if that company has a breach, your details are all over the place. And what that enables is bad actors to build a profile of you. Okay. And you could be targeted for identity fraud. People could be applying for mortgages in your name. So yet again, this is my old adage, less is more. So yet again, give as minimal information as way as possible. And if you've been unsuccessful, request for your data to be deleted. Companies are obliged to delete your data within a given time period. And there's very few occasions when they have to demonstrate why they need to keep your data. The reality is you've applied for a job. That's what your CV is there for. If you're unsuccessful, they have no reason to keep that data. Quite simple as. So yet again, these are the couple of rights which you have as a candidate today and from the 1st of January. In terms of other rights which you have, and this is probably going on to a bit of a, dodgy subject, is obviously as a private citizen in most countries around the world, you have the right to record any interview that you're in. You're not a company. So if you ring up your insurance provider, they say we might we'll record this conversation for training purposes. As an individual, you can record any conversation which you're in and use it as a private matter. Now, so if you think that you've been discriminated against for whatever reasons, you can actually record and you don't actually have to tell people that you're recording the conversation. And the reason I bring this up is I was dealing with a candidate a few months ago. For the first time in their lives, they were made redundant. And this individual was being told quite openly that they were the wrong gender, the wrong age, and the wrong skin color. That's why he was being rejected. Another candidate who I also spoke to was also in the UK, was also facing the same problem. And he actually reached out to me, said, "How can I handle this, Rod?" It is an issue. Discrimination does exist. And it actually happens to all groups. And the reason I can say this, I had a candidate who was in his late 20s, absolutely brilliant salesperson, and a lot of recruiters didn't believe his achievements. He was beating people 15 years senior in his team, and he built it from scratch. I've had candidates come to me, with many case examples like that. A good example of this is, you're not one of them kind of scenario. You're not hired, you're not progressed because you're not one of them. And what I mean by not one of them, a lot of people will have biases when recruiting, and they're looking for someone who they can go and have lunch with. They're looking for someone who they can have a tea with. They're not really assessing your abilities, your skills, your experience, your hard skills, your soft skills. They're assessing you and whether or not they like you as a person. So yet again, there are a lot of jobs out there where the interviewers haven't been trained and they're just looking for someone who's a face that's going to fit into the group. So yet again, be very wary about it. But if you feel that you have discrimination, you do have the right to record that call. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I'll be doing more videos. I've got to still do the video around, if you're a software engineer, what to expect in the recruitment process. I will do some more. I'm trying to find some collaborators, but I'd like to, thank everyone who's watched my first 4 videos over the last week or so. I'll be making more. This is really for you to understand the recruitment process, what to expect in that process as we face unprecedented times. Take care. Au revoir. Ciao, ciao. Auf Wiedersehen.